Today we are talking about something special, the worst entry to the Mortal Kombat franchise. Not only that, but one of the worst games to ever release. It may sound like a mouthful of a statement considering how many terrible titles have released over the years across so many different platforms and generations, but once you see, you will understand. We are talking about a little title on the Game Boy Advanced, and at first you think, oh wow, you're just gonna unfairly rip apart a Game Boy Advance title. No, this is not unfair, completely justified. With the name Mortal Kombat Advanced, obviously expectations are not going to be as high as a console or arcade entry. This released back on December 12, 2001. We were still in the era of handheld games not being powerful. Obviously now we can quite literally emulate Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Tekken 3, or plentiful amounts of titles on our phones using various amounts of emulation services out there that not for a second would ever have been considered possible at the time of this game's release. So sacrificing playability is an expected part of Game Boy Advance games, DS, or even PSP games as well. There's stuff that works on Game Boy, obviously. We have so many great games that are on this platform. Golden Sun, Metroid Fusion, Mario 3's great port, Mario Kart, plus other hidden gems. But taking something as expansive as a fighting game is not as simple. There's a lot that goes into this particular genre, which wouldn't translate well to a handheld. Considering how cheap it was to make Game Boy games, obviously companies were going to push and rush this stuff out since they're not really losing anything to release one. Which brings us to Mortal Kombat Advanced. I always feel like a little boy on Christmas playing handheld console titles such as this, sipping on Windex playing my 2-buttoned game machine. At first glance, it doesn't look terrible. The popcorn-ass audio is expected from Game Boy Advance, but it sounds fine. I recognize the music. This, of course, being a port of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. My initial thought was, thank Christ it is not a 3D era game because it just would not work. Stick with the older titles. Pulling off 2D is so much easier and can possibly translate well. Almost everyone is here. For whatever reason, Shiva is not playable, but they still included her jump sound effect. I'm not sure what the reasoning is for this, but whatever. Again, graphically, it looks alright. Obviously, it's a bit grainy. It also has some decent animation here as well. Right after you take a look at your screen, noticing all this stuff, trying to figure out which buttons do what, the AI is flying straight in, doing crazy combos, instantly countering all my moves, just going nuts. I literally couldn't do anything. I couldn't move, and I was starting to question myself, like, did I accidentally pick a harder tower? Or maybe when I was looking through the options, I set it to hardest mode or something by mistake? But no, this is on normal mode, on the novice tower. I'm sitting here dumbfounded and laughing to myself like I literally couldn't do anything. When I say everything is being countered, I mean it. Usually we exaggerate with these old school titles like, oh, I can't even move, the AI is so gross, I can't do anything. Which obviously they are to an extent. I just made a video recently talking about the original 3 titles. I got my bit of experience in. Even in those, the first 2 or 3 fights are fine, letting players understand what's happening and what the buttons do. Right off the rip, it feels like this guy's playing for $1 million cash prize while I'm trying to see which button punches and which one kicks. Even turning the difficulty down, nothing changes. Playing the easiest and novice tower, it feels like I'm going against a Chessmaster robot new generation where it looks 15 moves into the future, making me feel like I got kicked in the head by a horse. It was so disgusting, I needed to take a step back and truly understand we are in for a ride here. This is not your normal video game. If you're questioning why this is an issue, let me explain. When we sit at an arcade cabinet, we're expected to be sticking quarters into the machine to continue playing, right? That's the nature of an arcade game. They're designed to steal your money. It's like a reverse Robin Hood, steal from the poor and give to the rich. The console ports were slightly toned down since, we're not in an arcade anymore. We're sitting in the comfort of our own home enjoying the game. The common thing between arcade and console play, we had plenty of buttons to work with and we also had much more control of what we did. So taking this game and putting it on a handheld device that has 2 buttons, mind you, it limits what the player can actually do on top of being played on a much weaker device. So to compensate for that, the AI should be stupid by default so the latter is actually playable. You're experiencing this on a bus going to school, on a trip, maybe the power went out. Presumably you're not playing in the best conditions possible. No one wants to deal with AI that's reading their inputs, doing insane combos that you can barely do anything about because the game hardly functions properly, which we will get into that part later. This feels like the hardest difficulty. Again, game, even when I change the difficulties in the settings or pick different towers, nothing changes. It's exactly the same. Like, is it glitched? Was this not play tested? After a while, there was a bug. I found a trick. For some reason, when you run into your opponent, they just don't do anything and back up into a corner, and you just keep pressing A, doing an infinite combo. They won't attack you or do much of anything when you pull it off correctly, which it's not hard to pull off in the first place. Your character is supposed to stagger backwards after a couple of hits, but for some reason this can only be performed in the left corner. If you do this in the right corner, your character does stagger back, and this was the only way I could win. I've never seen anything like this in my life. No matter what I did, it was impossible. Anything I tried to do, just the AI was so disgusting. It makes Mortal Kombat 2 look like a joke when it comes to the AI. So just spamming A wins the game. Any difficulty, any character aside from the bosses, any tower, this trick just wins the game. In theory, you can flawless victory your way up all the way to the endurance rounds. Fighting two opponents makes our glitch a little bit harder to pull off, so if you play it for whatever reason and cannot win the first battle because it's so fucking disgusting, just do that. This should have been realized immediately if it was tested. This is the main aspect showing me that Mortal Kombat Advance was not tested at all, aside from numerous other problems in the game that would prove the same thing. Anyone would have noticed this issue. It is unplayable levels of difficulty, even beyond traditional exploiting we all know from Mortal Kombat 2 being the most sickening AI in the series. You need to spam the same move over and over again to win, even on the first fight. At least in Mortal Kombat 2, you have the option of a few attacks. Mortal Kombat Advance might as well be changed to press A the video game, and it makes you feel like an idiot playing it. Not to mention, almost every character has infinites. You can probably go turn this on and figure out some in seconds. Special moves have no recovery time, so you can infinitely chip enemies to death. Rain's lightning is a perfect example. Just press back A on repeat and it will kill any regular enemy in the game. I'm sure there's plenty of others that I did not find, showing how broken this game is. Eventually, when you figure out your exploits and make it to the top of your tower, bosses are waiting for you as expected. Motaro and Shao Kahn are ready there, sitting to fuck you up. We will talk about Motaro first. I hate fighting him in the regular version, the most frustrating classic Mortal Kombat boss undoubtedly. Maybe some people on Earth can beat Mortal Kombat Advanced Tower without spamming the same move over and over again. I mean, I highly doubt it. If you can do that, I would love to see it. As I said, my trick is to run someone into a corner and press A repeatedly until I win. These bosses are ungodly. I almost gave up due to how just gross it is fighting them. It genuinely made me speechless. Motaro can juggle you into the air with fireballs, constantly teleporting around, pummeling you in literal seconds. And this was before I figured out you could even do special moves. I mentioned how the game doesn't function properly, so I genuinely thought at first the developers did not allow for players to use special moves on my first run through of the game. Or maybe they forgot to code it properly, they just only work when they feel like it. It doesn't seem to matter how slow or how fast I press the buttons, the moves just wouldn't come out. This is Mortal Kombat 3 after all, so some of the attacks are engraved into my mind, so I know how to pull them off. No game should ever be making the player feel like the developers forgot to implement a mechanic. Now I know you can actually do special moves. Maybe this fight could have been easier. Even still, I'm sure Motaro would have eaten my freezes, then stun-locked me with a fireball or some stupid shit like that. You're just endlessly throwing yourself at a wall to win. My tactic was a glitch, obviously, what a shocker. Similar to the previous one we mentioned about running your opponent into the wall, you can walk up to Motaro, you need to hope he doesn't hit you, punch him once, tap forward, punch him again, and just repeat that. Similar to the regular enemies, I literally couldn't win unless I did this. If I tried to do anything else, the round would be over in 5 to 10 seconds. I'd be on the floor gone. I cannot describe how ridiculous this is. The fact the only option I have is glitches, there's no excuse for the AI to be programmed this way, especially on a Game Boy. On top of all of this, I'm trying to pull this stuff off on a game that doesn't even function properly when it comes to the core fighting, which is the only thing you can do in the game. On occasion, moves just don't do damage. Sometimes the AI would punch me or whatever and nothing would happen, and the same thing would happen if I tried to hit someone else. It would just do no damage. This feels as if I'm trying to make sure an old beat up car doesn't explode while I'm driving it. This is not even the worst part. Motaro is gross, but Shao Kahn is the most ridiculous boss I've ever seen in a game. This fight was the nail in the no testing coffin. This fight is absurd. You actually lose in under 5 seconds 99% of the time. The instant round 1 starts, he flies right over you like a fucking bomber plane, doing the most insane anti-gap closing play in history, flying over your head, dropping down to use the bombardment of shoulder charges, instantly killing you. He will trap you in the corner and there's actually nothing you can do. He chains the shoulder charges together, punching you, and you just die. This actually happens almost every single round. You cannot prevent this. You cannot stop the Shao Kahn airliner. He comes right in and you're dead. Out of the 15 matches I did against him, I only beat him 1 round. Granted, these were fast, about 5 seconds each. We have the timer on the top of the screen to prove how long these matches were. Here is where I was really about to hang up the gloves and move on. I was genuinely convinced this battle was impossible. I mean, if you look at the rest of the game, you can tell it clearly wasn't even tested, so maybe no one made it to the end of the game. I have no idea. Until the moment was discovered, an ultimate strategy even God himself couldn't figure out, and he will after watching this video. He's gonna figure it out and hide it from the devil forever, so when their battle begins, he can use it against the almighty evil. They don't work. Like, it's forward A, but sometimes the attack just doesn't work. Like, oh wait, can I just keep doing this to him? Wait, will this actually work? Dude, is this what I gotta do to win? Dude, there was no sound from that shit. I got fucking scared. Oh my god. Dude. Stop. That's the only way to win. Apparently. I didn't think he was gonna get stuck in the corner. I honestly thought he was gonna attack me. My last resort was spamming teleport uppercuts with smoke, and it actually worked, getting me the victory. And with this, I will never touch this piece of shit again. There's actually nothing positive to say about Mortal Kombat Advanced, and I hope everything I've laid out here doesn't make you want to seek it out and try it for yourself. It just doesn't function properly, it's not fun, there's no enjoyment to be had here, not even a smile from a little boy on Christmas morning. Imagine getting this as a gift. What if it was your only game? You had no choice but to play this on your Game Boy since your parents got suckered into buying it for you. It's something very sad to think about. Some may be sitting here still thinking, oh my god, you're just being a hater picking on a Game Boy game like this. You have too high of standards, as if I've never played anything on a Game Boy before. I mentioned how playability suffers when being ported to this platform, but you cannot tell me this is playable by any stretch of the imagination. If you really think this garbage is okay and it's perfectly playable, then what is Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition? This came to light in my life recently. I said even earlier, thankfully this is a 2D game being ported rather than a 3D since it will never work, and how wrong I was since this port of Deadly Alliance is awesome. Just look at it. The graphics are much improved over the grainy nonsense from Advanced. We can move, we can play the game, my attacks are working, special attacks are coming out on command, we have fighting styles, the crypt is here, there's content, there's a practice mode, unlockable characters. Well, Mortal Kombat Advanced did allow you to unlock Human Smoke, Motaro, and Shao Kahn by finishing towers aside from Novice, but I'm never playing that shit again, so I could care less. I was just so impressed how well this port came along. I played this longer than I needed to because it was genuinely fun. If I had this as a kid, it would have been over. This would have been my game anywhere I went. It's completely playable. The AI is not rancid, blocking and countering all my moves unless the difficulty is ramped up as it should be. The existence of stuff like Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition proves making a fighter on a handheld such as a Game Boy is 100% possible. Funnily enough, Deadly Alliance is much more complex than Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, yet the more complex port is actually functional compared to the lesser. Any logic behind that makes zero sense at all. Because a Game Boy title simulating 3D movement works better than a 2D fighter. Like, okay. Of course, this was 2 years after Mortal Kombat Advanced releasing October 25th, 2003. Midway learned their lesson who to give their IPs to, and people started understanding how to properly make games for the system as time goes on. If seeing Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition is not enough for you, if you're that big of a defender of Mortal Kombat Advanced for whatever reason, you should probably go make sure you didn't drink the wrong bottle of Pepto-Bismol after your Taco Bell dinner if you're actually defending this disgusting abomination disgrace of a title. Sure, I will give that to the Mortal Kombat Advanced defenders. This came out a couple of years afterwards, so they learned their lesson, and Mortal Kombat Advanced released earlier on in the Game Boy Advance lifecycle. But what I'm about to show you, how the hell can you defend Mortal Kombat Advanced against this? 1 week, not year, not decade, week. After Mortal Kombat Advanced released, we got Tekken Advanced on December 21st, 2001. This, yet again, proves making a fighting game on a Game Boy Advanced is possible. Fun fact, this is the only other platform Tekken 3 has ever been ported to aside from PS1. Tekken 5 on PS2 doesn't count with the arcade version. Well, technically Tekken Advance is a mixture of Tekken Tag 1 and Tekken 3, but the base is still Tekken 3 and it plays stupendously. Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition was good, but this blows it out of the water. It has a full-fledged move list, 10-hit combos, 3D movement, quote-unquote 3D movement. All your inputs come out great. Literally, I can start cranking out electrics while going to the bathroom, aiming for the perfect frame. It's genuinely playable to the point someone could practice it and have competitive matches using a Game Boy Link with another person. That's how high quality Tekken Advanced is. Remember, 1 week after the crap that you just witnessed. Not to mention how good the soundtrack and audio clarity is. It is unbelievable and really impressive.
Round 1, fight.
It sounds amazing for a Game Boy. Shout out to the people that worked on this, being able to cram a lot of content, deep gameplay, and great sound design into this little cartridge. If I had to guess, Midway probably knew this was releasing somehow and wanted to rush Mortal Kombat Advanced out to beat this game in sales. Giving it to the first person they could find most likely gave them 2 weeks to make it. There's no way the release dates are a coincidence. 9 days apart, like come on. What other conclusions could someone come to? It clearly wasn't even tested, riddled with bugs, the AI is impossible to the point the player is required to use exploits and glitches to win. It's a mess, an inexcusable mess. It had to be rushed, and there's nothing else I can think of to why it sucks this bad. Tekken and Deadly Alliance are both much more complex games to develop than Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. One of these 3D titles are the games that we should be laughing at right now, not the 2D one. We should be praising that one because of how simplistic that is to make in comparison. This is not only the worst Mortal Kombat title, but also one of the worst titles ever released, garnering a whopping average of a 2 out of 10 from so many different outlets. Do not play this game, don't even bother, it's not even worth it out of curiosity or for any reason. Do a smart play and stay away.
Yowzers, it's Axel here. I want to come in and thank all of the channel members we have. All of your support is much appreciated. Shout out to every single one of you for being a hero of the ages. Hail our Lord Panther.